Hi, I'm Paula.
I'm David.
Welcome to David's Wealth of Knowledge. Today's topic is a scary piece of history. What do you have to tell us, David?
Okay, so I've been reading a very interesting book called Nuclear War Scenario. Okay, Annie Jacobson, if I remember correctly. But something the book touches on, okay, is possibilities of and the history of nuclear warfare. Okay. Now, we all know in 7th of August 1945, the US dropped the first nuclear bomb in anger on Hiroshima. At that point, the world changed. Now, I grew up at the tail end of the Cold War. Yes, I am that old. And I remember growing up with all the things, what to do in case of a nuclear attack. Okay, granted here in South Africa, it wasn't a serious thing, but we were more worried about the terrorists under the bed sort of thing. But it was something that to a little kid was scary. Okay, and I've always remembered that time. Now, since then, things have gotten better, but also in the last couple of years, things have gotten worse again. So it's a good point maybe to think about the history of how things happened. Now, after the first bomb and then the second bomb on Nagasaki, okay, essentially there was an arms race from that point between the USSR and the US. The USSR soon developed its own bombs, and the Cold War basically started in earnest. And essentially what happened, the two sides started building bombs. And in 1960, the US military essentially organized a conference where they got together and came up with what they called the SIOP, a Strategic Integrated Operational Plan, where they coordinated the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, in terms of how they were going to conduct a nuclear war. One of the things that I read about is one of the organizers of the conference, years later, when he was writing his autobiography, or the memorial, he said, and in retrospect, it felt very much like the Wannsee Conference that the Nazis had, where they came up with the final solution. At the conference, the meeting, whatever you want to call it, everybody said what a good job they'd done, except for the U.S. Marine commander, who basically said that coming with a plan that kills off so many people is just not right. I mean, at the time they thought, an earlier plan thought maybe 600 weapons would be enough. Okay, 600 nuclear weapons. But then came along the thermonuclear weapons, okay, hydrogen bombs. And the US started building them extremely fast, as did the USSR. At one point, they were building something like 10 a day. Okay, at the peak of the Cold War armaments, the US had approximately 20,000 warheads, and the Russians about 25,000. Okay, that's insane. 45,000 warheads. Okay? Everybody knew that if it ever went up, everybody would be dead. I mean, the whole concept of mutually assured destruction, with, as everybody says, the accurate acronym of MAD, was essentially the what they thought would save everybody. Okay. I mean, there were so many close calls. I mean, we know the Russian one, Petrov, who was a commander at the radar station in the USSR, when they detected 5 missiles coming in from the US. But he realized that the US wouldn't attack Russia with only 5 missiles, and so he quickly confirmed that it was a false alarm. On the American side, in late 1970s, NORAD, I believe, were informed that the USSR had launched a strike on the US. And the head of NORAD was apparently about 2 minutes away from informing Carter, who was the president at the time, that the Russians had launched. Okay. I mean, and so that's an amazing. I mean, how close we have come multiple times to nuclear annihilation. I mean, it's a scary thought. I mean, nowadays, I mean, we've got, I hate the phrase, rogue nations like North Korea, who aren't beholden to any sort of diplomacy or anything like that, under the control of a single person. I mean, if they decide to do something, I mean, there's very little anybody can do about it. Yeah, I mean, we look around, and I mean, you can think about how close we've come again and again. I mean, the Cuban Missile Crisis, for example, and other things. I mean, granted, I mean, the drawdown on nuclear weapons has been quite substantial. I think the US maintains about 1,700 nuclear weapons on active duty, essentially, on various missile bases in the US, and the submarine launch ballistic missiles, as well as bomber fleets, like a nuclear triad. And we have Putin ramping up his rhetoric about expanding their nuclear triad. So yeah, I mean, it's well worth remembering where we've been, how close we have been, and wondering what can we do. I mean, yeah, we got nuclear weapons in the hands of, frankly, people who shouldn't be anywhere near the red button, and that's a scary thought. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I went off on a side tangent there, and so much wealth of knowledge. But yeah, it's something well worth remembering, and wondering, where do we go from here?